All right, let's get started. Welcome to 2024 Pets Town Hall. This is the opportunity for the pet board, the organization committee, all the people who are generally involved with organizing pets to tell you about essentially the state of the pets, how POPETS is evolving in terms of organization. And one of the key goals of this session is to get feedback from the community. So we will give you some updates, and towards the end, we are really looking forward to your feedback about how the process is as they're evolving. If you have suggestions for us to improve them, that's really what we are seeking here. We have a bunch of people who are going to come up to the stage and talk. First, it will be Susan McGregor, and she will talk a little bit about the stipends process.
Thank you very much. Hello. Hi, so my name is Susan McGregor. I'm the co-chair of the Stipend Committee for 2023 and 24. Just wanted to share a little bit about the stipend process and specifically wanted to thank our stipend sponsors. So we listed the sort of conference sponsors this morning. This afternoon, I just wanted to sort of specifically call out all of the organizations that have made stipends for pets possible. So I would say somewhere between 15 and 20% of in-person attendees at Pets this year have received some kind of financial support thanks to our sponsors, the National Science Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Refrain, and CASA. Just wanted to, as I said, sort of acknowledge these organizations which have made this possible. And specifically, while we have general support from three of them, that CASA, the Cybersecurity in the Age of Large-Scale Adversaries, is our family and child care sponsor specifically. So I'll say another word or two about that in a moment. But just really want to thank these organizations. I'm guessing that there are plenty of people in this room who are receiving support through that mechanism. So I'd just love to give a little round of applause because it makes a big difference in what we're able to do. And with that, also just want to acknowledge the committee. Myself and my co-chair, Awais Rashid, who's familiar to everyone by now, Murtuza, Yixing, and Marvin. So Yixing and Marvin you may have seen around. Murtuza couldn't attend this year, but as those of you who have been involved in the process at any point know, there is a lot of administration involved, a lot of emails and decision making. And I just wanted to really give thanks to these folks for all of the hard work and effort they put in. I also would love to give a shout out to the folks here at Refrain who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the admin. So specifically, again, some folks you may have seen, Yvonne Rigby, Sophie Standen, Sophia Walsh, who is behind the wonderful map of Bristol that lists, among other useful things, excellent restaurants and free public toilets around the city, for those of you who are staying, and Jenna Cox, who will be handling the Refrain stipends on this side. And also just to say that one category of support that we do still have funding for, so please feel free to reach out to the stipends alias, or you can come talk to me directly, is in childcare. So if you have been, if you needed to put your kids in care, or you have other family care responsibilities that you'd like financial support for, please let us know. We do have a little bit of funding to still disperse in that category. Also, if you're interested in participating in the stipends process as part of the team next year, we would love to have you. Please feel free to reach out. I think we're going to have some structure for that too. And I'm authorized to say the same for Safe Spaces, which is another role that I've been participating in. We're really interested in kind of expanding participation in these parts of the organizing effort. So feel free to, flag me sometime or send an email to either of the relative aliases and let us know that you'd like to help. So that's all. Thanks very much.
So next, I will give a few updates about some of the changes that we made to the PETS 2024 process. A quick overview of how PETS is organized for people who are not familiar. So PETS is essentially governed by the PET Advisory Board, and the Advisory Board invites program chairs and general chairs, and the changes that I'm going to be talking about are related to the changes that Micah and I have implemented as program chairs of PETS 2024. So one of the changes that we have done in 2024 as compared to 2023 is we decided to get rid of senior program committee, which was a rather big subset of the overall program committee, and replaced it with a smaller number of vice chairs. So our vice chairs this year were Anna, Ganesh, Paul, Rebecca, and Sadia. And I think you already, and amongst these five, Ganesh and Paul are in the audience today. So big round of applause for the work that all of them have done. They did a lot of work, but a lot of the work that they were doing, it was not very author visible, because one of the changes that we made was these vice chairs were not responsible for writing the meta reviews. The meta reviews were actually written by one of the reviewers who reviewed your paper. And this is like one big difference from PETS 2023. Another big change that we made for PETS 2024 was that we got rid of external reviewers. It essentially was challenging to keep track of external reviewers and like invite them to HotCrap. And as PETS has been growing, and Rob will talk more about this in a little bit, it just became unsustainable. And we tried in 2024 to invite a decent subset of people who were previously external reviewers to part of the regular program committee. Another big change that we made this year was that we included a field on HotCrap where we asked the authors to indicate whether or not they would release code and or data along with the paper if the paper is accepted. This is distinct from the artifacts review process. So out of the roughly 700 papers that were submitted, 120 did not check the box. The rest checked the box. And the ones that did not check the box, we asked them optionally to provide reasons why they are not planning to release code and or data. And they provide certain reasons. And starting next year, as Rob will also talk about this, we are going to make this field required. So if the authors indicate that they are not planning to release code or data, they are required to give a reason that will be visible to reviewers at the time of reviewing. And lastly, this is not a change. We continued with the ethics process. The ethics process at PETS remains somewhat ad hoc. So we ask the program committee to volunteer to be on the ethics task force. And as you can imagine, every year there is like a small number of papers that raise all sorts of ethics issues. The way we handle this is there is a field that is available to reviewers when they're submitting their review. They can indicate whether they believe that this paper raises any ethical concerns that warrant an additional review. And this field is visible to authors. And then if required, we, on an ad hoc basis, seek additional review from the subset of the PC who have volunteered to be on the ethics task force. And last year, roughly around like 5 papers required an additional review. So this process seems to be going well. I think we are interested in your feedback if you think we should like formalize this process. But seems to us that for now that this process is working out so far. And with that, I would invite Mithi to give an update about the artifact review process at PETS 2024.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Mithi Majmudar. I'm the Artifact co-chair for 2025 to 2026. I'm presenting on behalf of Max and Pasan, who are not able to be here today. And so just a quick summary of the statistics for this past year. We had about 69 artifacts submitted. We've been steadily going up in the number of artifacts that have been submitted, and we're trying to accept all of them and trying to reward a badge appropriately. We are still in the process of reviewing some of them, so if you're one of the authors who submitted to the last issue, we're still in the process of finalizing that. And we've kind of have this like per issue load that's kind of like 20, and then it kind of drops by half. But overall, we've been kind of increasing the number of artifacts that we're reviewing. We've had 53 artifact reviewers, so round of applause for everyone who's participating. So this has been, again, steadily going up. So we really appreciate the support of the community in taking up this role. We've tried to balance out the load for each artifact, for each reviewer, sorry. So we try to have like about one reviewer per one review for each reviewer for each round, no more than 3 in total for the whole year, really. While at the same time trying to have more than 2 reviews for each artifact, right? So that's just a quick summary of the statistics. We are planning, so a summary of the change in the process as compared to the previous year. So we have 2 badges, artifact available and artifact reproduced badge, and a lot of the presentations have been kind of highlighting those badges out. So we encourage people to go ahead and try out their artifacts. We've also been providing VMs to the reviewers and authors, and a special thanks to Tobias for overseeing the process of like configuring and managing the VMs. Yes. This is a single blind review process in that the reviewers are anonymous. The timeline is that we kind of have this 3-week from the artifact submission, from the notice of acceptance to the artifact submission, and then we have, again, 3 weeks from the artifact submission to the reviews being released out. And we try to finalize artifacts before the decision for the next round. So that's the timeline that we're going for. We did want to bring up some discussion points to get feedback from the community. So we found that some of the setups are, some of the artifacts are difficult to reproduce, whether it is because they require physical resources, some hardware that the reviewers don't have access to, whether it is that, and also for studies that do measure some variables over time that we are not able to, that the reviewers will not be able to do, as well as usage studies. And the goal in all of these cases is to be able to take your artifact and take the data that you have in your artifact and be able to reproduce some of the graphs and the tables that you have in your figures. Unfortunately, the current state is that we are kind of awarding these papers the artifact available badge. The goal is to kind of be able to reward them more proportionally to the effort that they've put in, because they still do have that pipeline of reproducing some of the statistics in the paper. And so we wanted to add this badge in the middle. That's an artifact functional badge. Another advantage of this approach is it kind of standardizes the process. This kind of 3-badge system is also used by Usenix and other conferences. And so we have a survey here, and in this survey, I invite everyone to provide their opinions on their experiences. So if you're an author who submitted an artifact, if you're an author who has not submitted an artifact and you would like to share some opinions, please go ahead and do so. If you're a reviewer and you have some ideas on how we can improve the process, please also provide your thoughts. We have 3 main points. One is on the VMs, the badges, and also a general field for feedback. So please go ahead and fill out the survey. We'll also send you a reminder at the end of the conference. And if you want to join as an artifact reviewer, I invite you to submit the POPET's editorial board nomination form, so it's the same form. You can select that you want to be an artifact reviewer, and we'll be able to see your request. And I think that's it. Yes.
What do the different badges mean, and where is it like on the website where that is? Because you look at it and you're like, reproduced, like they didn't do the whole study. Does this just mean it works? What's going on?
Yeah, there is information about the badges in the artifact page on the website. We do plan to revise that information because there have been problems and confusion in the process. But the idea with the artifact functional badge in particular is to award the artifacts where they have been able to. We aren't able to do the data generation part, but we are able to verify that using this this set of raw data, we can in fact produce the figures in the plots. So that's kind of the goal of the artifact functional badge. The reproduce badge is expected to be awarded to the artifacts that do have the full process automated. So from the raw data to generate the raw data to verifying that it can produce the statistics in the paper, whereas the artifact available badge is kind of like the lower end of the spectrum, where you just have this artifact and we're not going through the whole process. But yeah, it's a really good point, and we want to clarify this further on the artifacts page for the website. Yeah.
The artifacts page, but maybe that's just because I'm bad at websites.
Okay.
And next up, I'm going to invite Rob to talk about some of the big changes in PETS 2025.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks for being here and for contributing to the community. I'm Rob. I'm going to be the co-chair starting in 2025. When Zubair first invited me, he said, what changes should we consider making in 2025? And I said, I don't know, things are going pretty well. And then he said, really? The sky's the limit. And so, trigger warning. We decided to shake things up significantly. So first of all, we are changing the decision model. For the last 8 years, we've had the five decision types that we're all familiar with. And starting in 2025, we're moving to just 3 types: accept, revise, and reject. So how do we get there? I'm going to go through a bunch of graphs and data because you haven't seen enough yet today. So we've seen a graph from Micah showed this morning, the previous growth rate over the last several years. And since 2018, it's been increasing by 20 to 30% each year. So both the number of submissions as well as the number of new submissions that are being submitted. So this is somewhat unsustainable, and we will run into a huge problem if we don't do something about this. So we were deciding to address the scalability problem that will become worse and worse every year. And we had 2 guiding principles that that guided our decision. One was efficiency. How can we reduce reviewer workload to make better use of the reviewers we have? And how can we reduce administrative burden for organizers to make the process of managing all of the submissions easier? And the second principle was simplicity. Can we make it easier to converge on a decision to help drive the discussion process, make the discussion process easier for the PC members? And is there anything else we can do in the revision process to improve that? So I'm going to describe the 3 decision types. The first one is accept. This is roughly equivalent to how it has been over the last several years. This graph shows the number of new submissions, so not major revision or reject and resubmissions. This is just new submissions every year over the last 8 years. And the number of accepted papers. This means you submitted and you got an accept decision the first time you submitted. This is a linear scale. This should, I think this should make all of us wonder what's going on, because very few papers are getting accepted on the first try. I do remember when I was in grad school, there was only accept and reject, and all papers that were accepted were getting accepted on the first try. So this is a lot different than it used to be. I'm going to switch the scale of the y-axis to log scale. We have single-digit number of accepted papers over the last 8 years. I think this is an issue. I think as a community, we should trust ourselves to be making smaller changes. We don't need to shepherd everything. And so from this result, we're planning to encourage the reviewers to issue more straight accept decisions. And we can still give advice on what changes need to be made, but I think we can trust the authors to make those changes in more cases. The second decision type is revise. And so we looked at some of the data for this over the last 8 years again. This graph shows the major revision resubmissions and what the result was when those were resubmitted. So just major revisions. We can see that the most common result on the leftmost side is accept. The second most common is minor revision, which is a shepherding decision, where you just have to make some small changes and the shepherd will look over those changes and approve it. So if you add both of these together, accept and minor revisions, most major revisions are being accepted on the second resubmission. So major revisions that get another major revision decision are not very common. This is the orange part of the graph. But when this does happen, it's frustrating for reviewers. They have to look over the paper again and again. It's frustrating for authors. Something wasn't communicated correctly in the feedback, and so they have to go through another major revision cycle. So we would like to reduce this incidence of this case. So we ended up at merging the accept with minor revisions and resubmit with major revisions into a single decision type called revise. We will still communicate the needed revisions in meta reviews as we have been doing for a long time. Revisions will be handled interactively by a single revision editor rather than having all 4 reviewers review the paper again. So for the authors, they just have to do the stuff in the major revision. If they have questions, they can interactively comment in HotCrap and ask for clarifications. The revision editor can communicate with the authors in HotCrap, so you can have an interactive process. And then for the authors, they have 2 deadline options when they get a revised decision. They can submit the revision or complete the revision process within 1 month or 4 months, depending on how much effort they need. So if your authors are very motivated to finish the revisions early, you can get your revisions done in a month. So this is not a conditional acceptance. This is not replacing minor revision or what's normally called shepherding. This is a revised decision. Revisions can still be rejected, and they must satisfy the meta review, and the revision editor must approve the changes. And so in some cases, the meta review itself isn't going to be enough to decide if you can accept or not. There needs to be an experiment that's done, and so there needs to be another review by the revision editor. And there are cases where even if you do what the meta review said you should do, you could still be rejected. I mentioned this is a single revision editor that's going to interactively communicate with the authors, but if that person doesn't have confidence or wants input from the other reviewers that initially reviewed the paper, they can still request that input from the other reviewers or the chairs. So the hope is that this will cut down on overall number of reviews, since hopefully we won't have to be reviewing revisions that are continuously being resubmitted, and hopefully this offers a clearer path to acceptance for authors. The third decision type is reject. This graph shows the results on reject and resubmit papers that are then later resubmitted. And here, the most often 2 results are another reject and resubmit or a reject. So most papers that are initially getting a reject and resubmit decision are later being rejected or reject and resubmitted. The difference between reject and resubmit is commonly confusing for reviewers and for authors. So we decided to merge the reject and resubmit and the reject options into a single reject decision. And papers that receive a reject must wait 1 full issue before resubmitting. This is to cut down on the number of incidences where you get a reject and resubmit or a reject and you just submit continuously and we have to re-review the submission. Okay, so how does this work out in the review process? The first half is the same as in previous years. You submit your article. There's a desk review for scope and for formatting issues, and then that could result in a desk reject. If it doesn't, it goes forward into the round 1 review where we assign 2 reviewers. The reviewers will review the submission. In the case that the submission receives 2 reject scores, it is a candidate for early rejection, and for those cases, we get confirmation from the reviewers before early rejecting those submissions. In cases where the reviewers don't have enough confidence or expertise or just want to get more opinions, we send those to round 2, and for any paper that gets a non-reject score, at least 1 non-reject score, so an accept or a revise, we'll also go to round 2. And then during round 2, we assign 2 additional editors to review the paper, so that's 4 total. And they review, and we send out the reviews. Authors are allowed to submit rebuttals. And then those rebuttals are discussed and the reviews are discussed among the reviewers, and a meta review is written and a final decision is made. So the second half of this is the decision types. This is where the new decision types I just described come into play. After the discussion, the result can be an accept, revise, or reject. So for accept, the cases of accept, that's just as it has been. You make the changes that are required, or actually you don't have to make, we don't check again, we don't re-review accepts, but you have an opportunity to take feedback into account and prepare your camera ready. Rejected papers, that's a terminal state. And then the revised papers goes through this interactive revision process I was describing, where you submit a schedule for the revision editor, and then you submit revisions. The revision editor can review the revisions and provide feedback. And this process can continue until the revision editor either accepts or rejects the revision. And there are deadlines by which the interactive revision process must be completed. The 1 month case, this is the 1 month or the 4 months that I mentioned earlier. So depending how quickly the revision process completes, you will be able to get your paper into either of these 2 camera ready deadlines. And then so for the administrative side of things, previously we were taking major revisions, those would be resubmitted into the next issue, so that would go into a different instance of HotCrap. So there was tracking done between multiple issues of HotCrap, which was complicated and labor intensive. With the new model, everything happens in a single HotCrap instance. So when you submit your paper, that's the instance it will be in until it is either accepted or rejected in the end. This includes your submission, the reviews, the discussion, the rebuttal, the meta review, and the final decision. And then if there's an interactive revision, all of that will happen in the same HotCrap instance. You'll upload your revisions. Those will be reviewed. Comments will be made by the revision editor. And then we will also be accepting final versions of the camera-ready papers inside of HotCrap, which is new this issue. So authors will be able to upload their final versions, and the publication chairs will download those from HotCrap, so you don't have to email those out anymore. And Zubair, I think you're up.
So there are a few other changes that we are planning to make in 2025. The 3 that I want to highlight is that PETS has always had this scope check where we desk reject papers that are not relevant to privacy. Starting this year, we have decided to more aggressively enforce the scope check and desk reject more papers where we eventually struggle to find the right reviewers, and we eventually end up rejecting those papers anyway. So we have improved the language on in the call for papers and the submission website that the papers which are being submitted to PETS should have a direct relationship to privacy, and papers who are doing, let's say, theoretical work, let's say theoretical crypto, if they make little to no effort to connect it to applied privacy, the chairs essentially have the discretion to desk reject those papers. And we did this more aggressively in the first cycle for 2025, and I think it will take some time for the community to adjust, because we do get a fair bit of papers coming from other conference venues that get essentially resubmitted to PETS, and we don't think that PETS is the right venue for those papers. And the other big change that we have made this year is that we have required the authors to essentially indicate when they're submitting the paper on HotCrap to indicate whether or not they used AI-based tools to help write the papers. We currently have somewhat vague guidelines requiring authors to provide in some level of specificity how they have used AI-based tools like LLMs. The other big thing that we have done this year is that we have prohibited the reviewers from using AI-based tools to write the review. So we have indication on HotCrap where every reviewer has to self-certify that they did not use AI-based tools to write the review. They, of course, did not submit the paper to an LLM to help them write the review, or even use LLMs for grammar checks. So we have taken a rather extreme stance on this, and this is like one big change. So we need your feedback, and at this point, I will ask Roger to maybe talk about some other issues which are like more broadly beyond the program. So please welcome Roger.
Test. Okay, so one of the really interesting things about the pets world, we don't have the huge IEEEs or ACMs or Usenixes. We're it. This crowd of people here is pets. You are pets. We are all pets. And that means that we can do whatever we want to do to make our community, our conferences work better. There's no other external sides to that. So one piece of that is if you want pets to be different, or you have feedback, you like things, you don't like that, let us know. We can actually do something about it. So if you're on the pet board, please stand up or raise your hand or something so that people know who is the pet board, so that you know who to go to. If you have stuff you'd like us to talk about, please contact us and tell us that. We've got a few minutes left here for questions and topics. So I wanted to make sure that the scope of this was larger than just the program side of things. So we can talk about logistics on the childcare, the stipends, visa issues, which countries should we be going to or not going to? Are there countries that we keep missing so there are populations of researchers who can't ever get to pets? There are workshops attached. Hot Pets, FOCI, we had some more this week. Are they working well? Are there workshops we should make sure to do again or not do again? We're going to get more papers over time because that's how this works. Do we need more tracks? Do we need more days? Do we not need more days? Do we present all the papers or only some of them? There are a lot of different models there, and you should help us figure it out as things go farther. The process of choosing awards, having a poster session, having rump sessions, doing a hike, good, bad, let us know. It's sort of challenged because we're doing a town hall on the first day of Pets, asking you for feedback about how all of these things have gone. That itself is a meta discussion about what the town hall is for, which is a worthwhile discussion. We started this town hall thing when we switched to the proceedings, the POPETS model back in 2016. And the goal of that town hall was to say, hey, everybody, the whole publication model is changing. And now we've had a town hall ever since. Do we need it? What do we need it for? And then the last topic, the hybrid approach, remote participation, yay, recorded talks, boo. Maybe there's a lot more to be talked about there in terms of how to have global participation, yet to have the conference itself be fun and the community itself to stay together and be cohesive. So I'm going to pass the mic to one of the people organizing here, but I encourage you to talk about any piece of pets, POPETS you want to talk about, not just the program.
And with this, the floor is open. Please, we are looking for your feedback. We want to hear from you. Please raise your hands and someone will bring the mic to you.
Hi. I have a question about the rebuttal word limits. So we just got people who submitted, which I'm sure there are many in this room. They got reviews yesterday. And I mean, Pets takes a lot of pride in having very detailed reviews, and that's really awesome. So I got a review of more than 5,000 words, which is great. It has lots of good feedback, lots of good questions. But of course, the rebuttal is limited to 500 words, which means that either we only respond to a subset of concerns, or we respond so briefly that it's really difficult to make the arguments or explanations. So the question is there a reason why this is a good thing to have this word limit? Or is it helping something, protecting something, or is it just putting a constraint that is not really doing anything good?
I would like to invite, test. I would like to invite anyone on the PC to give some input to this question. Do you like reading long rebuttals? Do you prefer not to ever have to read a rebuttal? Authors, do you want to write 2,000 words when you get reviews back? Please, feedback. Did you have? No, not to that. Okay. Anyone have anything specifically about the Tarek? All right, great. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, so as a reviewer, it's great if the authors will respond to the actual review and really make it very direct to what was asked. I mean, and I guess we have that box where it says, please answer these questions. And I'd be okay reading however long they need to write, if they're keeping it on point. But sometimes you get these rebuttals that are like, because there is this word limit, and they think, well, I can't address every single question, so I have to make this meta abstract thing that will maybe generalize to all the questions that were asked. Because maybe that's what's causing these vague answers, is because there's this word limit and they can't really go to every single question and answer it. So that's my take. I mean, but I'm happy to read as much as long as it stays on point.
Thank you. Anything else about rebuttals?
Yeah, I mean, in PETS we have rebuttals, and then we have summary of change document when they actually submit the revision, right? So authors actually have two opportunities to get back to reviewers. So I feel that rebuttal is the first one, and if we can keep it short and more spotlight, we can get more like better feeling of we should accept this paper or reject the paper or what to do with that. And then we will have opportunity to still read the more detailed explanation when they submit the actual revision. So I'm the one that the fan of reading short rebuttal than long rebuttal.
Adam? Yeah.
Testing.
Yeah.
Testing. I actually was going to ask about something else, but I'll just say I hate to steal something from the Kai review process, which I really despise. But one thing that they actually do really well, I think, is that because they have like an area chair that's in charge of the reviews before they go to authors, is that you get a list of things that they really want you to respond to. So one of the challenges with the reviews is that you're never quite sure if it's important or not for the reviewers. And so you're often trying to choose what you think is important, but they might not think it's important. But if you did a little bit of meta reviewing before sending the reviews back to say like, okay guys, like which 3 points do you really want the authors to respond to, and that's somehow indicated, then you would at least hint to them about that. So that's just one idea. That's what Kai does.
I'll just add one perspective from like what I've noticed over the last 1+ year. I think we have gotten some feedback from the authors that when they write rebuttals, even though they're limited to 500 words, the reviewers do not acknowledge them. They do not actually perhaps read them or take them into account. And I think that can cause frustration. And there is a risk that if we even increase the word limit to, let's say, 1,000 words, that the chances that fewer reviewers will actually read the whole rebuttal and respond to the rebuttal, it will get worse. So I think there is that risk that we have to weigh this against.
Yeah, just to go on those. Oh, sorry.
Could I advocate something similar to what was said before, that you have a meta review with a sequence of questions and a meta review rebuttal that answers those questions, and then maybe that will help with this dynamic, because the reviewers will have to think carefully about what questions they want to actually ask. Because maybe some of the questions in the reviews, one reviewer can help the other one out, and they don't need a response on that.
Yeah.
And
So this already organically happens. Like when meta review is written, there is generally very intense discussion amongst reviewers, and those points that are distilled in the meta review, that's after the rebuttal.
So there need to be the sort of gathered questions before the rebuttal.
The obvious thing I can see here is that we can add one field in the review form where I think like some other conferences, we can have a specific text box where we say like questions for authors to respond to in a rebuttal. I don't think.
We have that.
I think it exists.
Okay,
go
so
ahead.
we already have that.
Yeah.
My bad.
So
It's optional? Okay, it's optional. I see.
so I think.
Tarek's next, and then Vera, and then
So one thing to add, just I think going off of these points is, yes, sure, you say in this box, please ask these questions. I think maybe reviewers should think about, are these the questions that might change my mind, or am I just like asking questions for the sake of knowing more?
Got it.
Just as a comment to what you said, Zubair, so I believe that when the word limit would be larger, if we instruct the authors to still stick to the meta response within the suggested size, and then have one-on-one responses to the exact questions by reviewers, I actually think it might be much easier for the reviewers to read that, because they read the general response and then they search for targeted responses. At least that was my experience with other conferences. That maybe that would be a solution in the middle, good for both sides.
Thank you.
So similar to Adam, I'm going to steal from the ICSIA International Conference of Software Engineering. I've been involved in it for many years, and the model they're using is exactly what we are discussing. It's not, everything isn't important to you as a reviewer. So you write down, these are the questions that I care about in the rebuttal. Don't answer anything else. That's the feedback to the authors. Please don't spend your time answering anything else. And reviewers are asked to number their questions as well. So authors don't spend time writing their rebuttal response as reviewer X said this. No, you go R1, R2, R3, this is what they've said, A, B, C, these are my responses. That's it. You don't need to repeat the question. And it's quite precise. And then your word limit doesn't matter because you are only answering from 3 reviewers, say 9 questions rather than 20,000 or something.
So let's switch gears. I think we've already discussed rebuttal at length. I want us to spend some time discussing the new revision model. Anyone has any strong feelings about that?
This is actually just a very easy thing. You didn't have the withdraw option. So like one of the things that has been really annoying about the major revision process at other conferences is that like they embargo your paper often during the revision in some way. So I encourage you to have a stated policy about how you can withdraw a process if you have a bad experience with a shepherd, and also how to appeal. Like if your shepherd's being a jerk, which has happened.
I think you can withdraw.
It has not been as clear cut in a lot of situations at other conferences.
I think at PETS you can withdraw.
You should have something explicit in your policy. Whether or not you can do it or not is just like explicitly say like you can withdraw at any point, and you can like if you have an issue where you feel like the goalposts are moving or whatever, like you can appeal that, because like that has not always been the case in some other reviewing procedures. So it'd be nice to have that explicitly stated.
Thank you.
So I wanted to suggest that the new revision cycle kind of changes both reviews and the rebuttal that we've been discussing at this point. If we have that somewhat interactive revision cycle, we only need the rebuttals basically to decide between a reject and a not reject. And so in that case, we can make our questions to the author and the author's responses more directed. Because a lot of the time when we look at the questions for the authors or the questions for response, it's on clarifications that go towards the meta review for a major revision or something else. So I think my suggestion is with this new cycle, perhaps we need to change the prompt to be more directed of like, what could make you not reject this paper? What do you need to know to be confident that this can go through a successful revision cycle? Because now we have more feedback we can get from the authors and things that we can just clarify later on. So. I think accept versus revise, it's not likely to have the same impact, because if you're going to accept it and it's something minor enough, you don't need to have them answer your questions. They're still going to have to do it.
Thank you. I've taken a note. Yeah.
Hello everyone, Zeki Erkin from Delft University of Technology. First of all, this community is doing great. I was in PETS in 2009 for the first time. So thank you very much for everyone for putting effort for the privacy community. I have 2 remarks, but the first one is revise might create a lot of confusion from authors and also reviewers. Maybe it's a good idea to think carefully, because if I get a revise as a author, I will be very positive thinking that if I make the changes, it will be get accepted. So it's very dangerous especially for the young generation when the hopes are high. Yeah. So is it concrete that you will have only 3 options, accept, revise, and reject?
I think you're right to point out that risk. As I think Rob was showing in past, when major revisions have been resubmitted, the acceptance rate has been very high. And probably with the new model, that number will come down a little bit, and there'll be some recalibration for both the authors and the reviewers.
Can I add this?
Yeah.
I think it really comes down to what's in the meta review and how the revision editor communicates to the authors what the expectations are for the revision, right? If you just list, oh, just do these 4 things, and then you do those 4 things, and then they reject it, of course you would be mad as an author. But if in the meta review you explain, well, we're not sure about this result, we need this experiment, and we will evaluate the results of that experiment to determine if this is acceptable. If that's how it was written in the meta review, I think you would be, as an author, your expectations would be a little bit lower, right? So I think it comes down to meta reviews. We need to write good meta reviews, and we will be doing our best to encourage, beg reviewers to write good meta reviews. Another question up here.
There
I
is
was
a
just going to add a comment to that. I think that suggests that Adam's point about withdraw is that much more important, because then you can also say as an author, we're not going to do that additional experiment. Take me out of the process, and that might streamline things as well.
There is a question online from Ian.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask a question about
Say it again.
if reviewers feel that they don't have the expertise to answer a certain question in the paper, if there are thoughts about how they should go about that, because we were in a situation where reviewers said, yeah, we don't know about this, so let's better reject this. And you know, that was a comically wrong legal interpretation that you know, really you know, could have gone the other way. So I wanted to ask, you know, of thoughts.
Do you have a suggestion of what we should do in that case? Because one option is try to seek a review at the last minute, but that's, as you can imagine, pretty challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I would think like if it's really unsure if there could be an external review. I mean, I understand this involves some additional complexity. Depends on how many of these cases are there, right? If it's just individual cases, then I think it's maybe doable. On the other hand, if every second team of reviewers, you know, has this problem, then probably that's not going to resolve. But I feel it shouldn't be left to the individual reviewers to figure out how they individually feel about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I?
Ian, you are online. Please ask your question if you can hear me. Ian Goldberg.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Technology. So I had a question for you, Rob, about the revision process, in particular so for people who choose to take the 1 month route, when is the camera ready deadline in relation to the camera ready deadline for the people who are straight accepted? Is it the same deadline?
It is the same
That's now
deadline.
just-
Yes, the same deadline.
So that's been pushed further out.
I think it's the same. It's 1 month after author notification is the camera ready deadline for both accepted papers and for revised papers where they can complete the revisions within the 1 month period. Or I'm sorry, no. 1 month to the revision deadline and then an extra 2 weeks for the
An
camera
extra
ready
2
deadline.
weeks. Okay,
I
that
apologize.
makes more sense. Yeah, great. And you showed, or either you or Zubair showed the upload of the final paper. The screenshot showed an upload of a PDF. I want to make sure that's not actually true. You still upload a zip file with your sources, not just the final PDF. Is that true?
Yes, that is correct. Sorry.
Okay.
That was on our test instance. Yes, the upload will be a zip file. You'll put the PDF of the paper in there as well as the other material that we require, some metadata, but everything will be a zip. And we'll have updated instructions for authors by the time they need to do that so that it'll be clear.
Anyone has any strong feelings about the LLM use policy?
Someone else, Tarek, I'm sorry, but you talked twice. Someone else wanna?
Yeah. One quick question. How do you challenge factually incorrect reviews? Like if there is a review which is factually incorrect, how do you challenge that?
I mean, we have a rebuttal process where you can politely but firmly still indicate to the reviewers with the counter evidence. And of course, it's a tricky thing to do in that power dynamic, but I think that's the only mechanism that exists. if you have a suggestion, please let us know.
Yeah. I think some conferences do use a clear appeal process, but it shouldn't be abused by authors, because then there has to be a clear, and someone else said earlier, an appeal process, that if it really, the power dynamics become problematic, right? Because as a reviewer also you get offended, someone has challenged you, right? So I think there has to be an appeal process, but what's the line for that is hard to define. But it can become problematic both ways, because authors can also abuse that. So.
Okay, so I don't have very strong opinions on the LMN thing, but I think we might consider us allowing AI tools for grammar checks, at least Grammarly, because personally, I'm very annoyed if I get a review that is full of grammar mistakes where I might not be 100% certain what the reviewer wants to tell me, because it's ambiguous or something. So, I don't know. I mean, I think for content and summaries and everything, I'm not a fan of AI tools. But a good grammar checks makes it easier on the reviewer. Because, well, writing, you're mainly focused on the content if you're writing a review, and you don't have a co-author like for a paper who will point out your grammar mistakes. So it's really useful, and I think it's nice to the authors that they're not standing in front of something and they're saying, okay, what the hell does that mean?
I'll just make the point that as authors, you are allowed, well, we don't have a policy for what you do with the reviews you get back. So you could do grammar checks after the fact. Okay. I think
We have 5 minutes left. Any feedback? Yeah, there is a hand there.
I'm sorry, this is not a question about LLMs, but for the revision editor. Is the revision editor be selected from one of the original 4 reviewers, or
Yes.
will it be someone external?
One of the 4.
Okay, thank you.
Any new voices?
There is.
Sorry to, we have one here and then you can go.
I have something to the conference itself. I enjoyed Zulip last year quite a lot. I've seen it at other conferences. The most valuable feature of it is if I have something concrete to the talk that it's not worth asking, but still worth sending to the author. Right now, what I have to do is much longer write an email. Actually, the Zulip or any other similar instant messaging tool kind of simplifies it, so if it's not too big overhead, I feel like it would be cool. And it's also cool for advertising that people have open positions or that they are searching positions.
Thank you.
Anyone who has not contributed yet? Right here.
Yeah, I would like to change topic completely and I would like to ask about the hybrid model, or to say like a warning if the hybrid participation, like online and offline participation, if it gets too much advertised, there might be people, for example me, who get trouble to get here because their institutions will basically force you to take part online. And I think taking part online is, well, it's not quarter of the experience. So please try to consider to keep this somehow that you can actually get here, because I understand that online is nice.
So would a strongly encouraged wording good enough to satisfy your institutions?
I don't know, to be honest. It's just, I just can say the warning.
How about we hide the page where we can accept online? Put it on torproject.net instead of .org.
So to that point, I think maybe it's just a question of wording. If the wording is, if you are, disadvantaged, if you are unable to attend because you have physical restrictions or visa restrictions, make it clear that this is, for people who are, disabled in some capacity, as opposed to, your boss thinks this is a cost-saving measure. I think if you word it appropriately, that it's not a guarantee, but I think that might help.
Let's send that through Grammarly before we post it. I'm sorry. Okay.
Just on that point, we did this year. So if you were an author, particularly, we said we expect you to come. If you can't come, you have to write to the general chair with the reason why not. Okay. In all fairness, we never said no, but that wasn't the expectation. So.
Just a small comment on the online presentations. I think we should favor live online presentation as opposed to recorded presentations, because the energy that the authors are giving us when they are presenting, when they are recorded, it just kind of goes down, and then it's much harder to follow the recorded presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask a question about financial inclusion, especially for junior researcher. I'm less than 2 hours away from here, and I can't bring any of my students because I don't have the cash to bring any of them here. And I know, university is very tight to organize a conference like this. Any way we can do either something like a student consortium track or something that is a bit cheaper they can come for, or something they can come for a few days but not the whole conference, would be really appreciated. And I know it's very difficult to do this and you don't want people to come for one day, but just I can't afford to bring any of my students and it's very sad.
Yeah, I think I've been kind of thrown into this because actually that's less of a stipends question than it is an organizing question. Broadly speaking, I think as somebody who's been helping out with stipends for a while, I think there's a lot of improvements that we can make. And we try not to make it fully first come, first serve. So I think that, things like getting it online sooner. I think something that is of concern to me is visa timelines. So that's something that comes up for us a lot. And I have some suggestions for Pet Board about how we can ameliorate that. I think the challenge basically is that, PETS is not, because it's not part of an organization, there's always kind of this will we be able to cover our costs this year? And so a lot of times what happens is that we don't know what kind of room we have for additional financial support until the end. And regrettably, that often comes when, and this is why I think changes are warranted, that comes when we have made offers of support to people who then are unable to attend, often for visa issues, and then it turns out that we're able to support, we're able to offer more support. But I think it's worth discussing whether there are other models of participation that are a little bit more granular, because obviously we do want a cohesive experience, but I can easily recognize that, to have it be kind of all or nothing, is a challenge as well.
Thank you. And any sort of flexible model where students might be able to join for one day and it's included in a sort of afternoon student consortium or something would be very nice, because it's going to be different countries and students from the country can join on that year and get a bit of experience.
Can I ask, when you say an afternoon student consortium, is your objective there is the idea so that they have an opportunity to interact with the rest of with most of the folks here, but not necessarily be part of the whole conference?
I think anything that is flexible and allows them for a few €100 or pounds to join, interact with other students,
right.
And potentially either other participants, but not pay for 5 days of conference.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We do have workshops, but I want to do a time check. It is after 6. Zubair, this is great feedback. Thank you all for contributing. Should we keep going, or what do you want to?
No, I suggest. It has been a long day. Please give yourself a round of applause for giving excellent feedback. Thank you. We appreciate it.